I'm Shanda Golden and you're in the vault. Today we're going to be hanging out with Mark Canter, the owner of the famous Canter's Deli here in Hollywood, and also the author of Reckless Roads, Guns N' Roses, The Making of Appetite Destruction. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you. I put thousands of hours of blood, sweat, and tears into that.
Yeah.
It's more of a labor of love for me because I watched it happen. It's not like I was a fan of the band. I was friends of theirs before there was a band.
Right.
So when, that all started, I was just there. And when I saw how good it was, I just documented it. And for me, if nothing else, and then later I realized everybody that's a fan would want to have this, share this information.
Right. When did you, when you first came out with the idea, when you first came up with the idea, to put this book out, did you have any reservations about? Because it is so personal. This is a very personal book. I mean, it's backstage and, for you, for your memories.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, it was a part of my life. And to share my collection. I collected the flyers and the ticket stubs and shot photos and recorded all the shows. And so I know what shows they debuted, Welcome to the Jungle or Paradise City or Rocket Queen. I know exactly those dates. And I'm like an encyclopedia of this stuff. And it's just, tattooed in my brain. And I know, growing up like an Aerosmith fan, I know, and a collector, I know what it means to other fans to get a hold of this kind of information.
Right.
So I'm so proud of it. And not only the fact that I love it for myself, I'm proud to share it, and I'm proud to make other people happy.
Right.
Every time someone gets one of these books and they find me on Facebook or they send me a little note, thank you, you were a fly on the wall, I didn't think this was possible, thank you, and I'm like, yes, that gives you like a little bit of energy in your stomach, and it's just good to hear that you're making other people happy. Right,
right. So now you're best friends with Slash.
I grew up with Slash. We were pretty much best friends since grade school. We rode bikes together, and he used to draw really cool artwork, so I knew he was talented. He was always a little faster than everyone else, and he did better tricks on his bike, so he was just like superhuman.
Right.
Then he picked up the guitar, and he caught onto that pretty quick. I mean, even 3 or 4 months into playing, even though he wasn't skilled yet, the notes he was choosing to play had a lot of soul and feel, and his soul was just pouring out of him, and it would give you goosebumps hearing what he was doing. So you just knew where that was going to go with some more practice, and and he looked good. There was image. He sounded good. He looked good. He was playing good. He had all the elements. He just needed the right people to. I know he was going to make a living one way or the other, even if he was just a studio musician. But running into Axl and Izzy and Steven and Duff and finding those guys finding each other when they did at that time, when the music industry really needed a good kick in the ass. They were there, and they were fed up with what was going on in the scene, and they just did their version of. They weren't even trying. They were just having fun, writing, and they were all building on each other's ideas. It wasn't
it was a combination of scenes. Because like you and I had chatted earlier, back in the day, that we're talking like 80s now, right? It was either you were hardcore punk, and you had to either be like a punk, hardcore true punk, or you're a poser, or you're a metalhead. And then when they got together, they kind of combined both, because Duff McKagan was totally into the Seattle punk scene, right? Right.
Duff brought the punk to the band. Izzy brought the Hanoi rocks, rock and roll, Rolling Stones feel. Slash brought the hard rock, bluesy to it. Axl brought everything to it. And Steven just had a really good groove. So, the five of them together, it wasn't like someone wrote a song and they all kind of just, played on it. Someone wrote a riff and they built on that riff to make a song, or sometimes Izzy would write some lyrics and Axl would put the melody to it, or vice versa. So it wasn't like any one of them was really responsible for this. It was just like a group effort. Slash knew what to do with what the band was coming up with. Axl knew what to do with whatever Slash was coming up with. It was just it was a cross connection every way you looked. And they were just having fun, worried about getting to the next gig, and I was helping them out a little bit with a little cash for little,
Did they work at the Deli?
Slash worked at the Deli, but not while he was in Guns N' Roses. It was before that.
Okay.
Actually. But you know, it was just a little pocket cash for guitar strings or for odds and ends that they might need. Food, you know, Canter's provided food, or I'd take them to Tommy's or whatever. You know, it wasn't a big thing, but we're helping the band with it. Some things were like ads in Band Magazine and maybe a backdrop for their, you know, banner that says Guns N' Roses, that, or demo tape. And I had a steady job and I was living at home, so pretty much all my money went, and my gas was paid for, so all my money went into that, you know, to help them. And then later they found strippers to also do the same thing.
That's another thing in this book that was so great, is that you Adriana Smith, you read her story. Yeah, and Michelle,
well, Michelle Young wasn't a stripper, but she's famous because of the song My Michelle.
Right.
You get her point of view in there. See, originally it was going to be just me. I actually did that book in 1993 is when I started it. It took me 15 months to put it together, 5 hours a night.
Wow.
Compulsively, midnight till 5 in the morning. And because I had to get it right. I like laid out the photos on art boards, and
it's beautifully done.
Well, it came out different than I had originally said. It actually made it better than mine. But my layout got the idea. It helped the publisher understand what I was trying to accomplish, and then they took mine and they took it a few levels up and really did something with it. But it was going to be just me. It was going to be a scrapbook of the club. It was going to be called The Club Days.
Okay.
And it was going to be just me remembering little bits and pieces. And I had Axel look at it, and as he was looking at it, he kind of remembered some things. Oh yeah, about this gig, Ted Nugent was hitting on my girlfriend, you know, little things, and then I would go back and incorporate those things. And I'd put them in my words, like saying Axel recalls, you know, that kind of a thing. I didn't really interview them for that. I was just going to be my project with my memories, because I have the memories, they really have some memories. But in the end, my publisher wanted to interview band members, and so I started setting that up with Slash and Steven and Duff, and I almost had Izzy, but I lost him at the 11th hour. Axl I would have had if I waited longer until his record came out. But what I realized, more important than the band members, more important than, well, maybe not more important than me because it's my book, but was everyone else that was there, the roadies and the girlfriends and the strippers and the record company people and the producer of the record. Everybody has something to say about something. I can't be everywhere at once. And so together, collectively, it becomes like a story told through 15 people.
Wonderful.
And so even though it's my project and I talk in first person a lot through it, I never got to go back in and fill in the bubbles, because originally my goal was to get the photos laid out with the transcribed the songs, and you know, hear what they say between the songs, which is really almost better than the songs themselves, what they said before the first time they debuted a song. You know, like for Rocket Queen, Axl said, this ain't much, but it's the best I could do. Or he first said, this is a new one, it ain't much, but it's the best I could do. This song is for Barbie. This song is called Rocket Queen. So, and then it goes right into Rocket Queen. So you can feel, you know, when you hear that, I have the tapes of those, so it's really
cool. It's
really cool when you hear it. But even if you read it, it just brings you right into that time zone, and then you're seeing the pictures of them on stage, and it's just so...
Well, I remember, because I grew up in Orange County, and I remember when this album came out, it was so defining to who I... kind of in a way who you become, right? Because
it changed people's lives.
It does, because it becomes part of your soundtrack. But the thing that I remember most about Guns N' Roses is that, yes, they're very talented. The music stands the test of time. But not only were they dangerous, they were so sexual. I mean, no shirts on. They looked like, you know, like L.A. hardcore bad boys, right?
Yeah, there was a good image there, a rock and roll image, right? You know, all the way through it. Like I said, there's probably like 5 elements of that. You know, sound, image, guitar playing, songwriting. They were one of those bands that, you know, you could only name 5 or 6 of them that have all those elements. And when we were kids, you'd go and buy posters of certain bands and put them on your wall. You can't do that anymore. Bands today, they might sound okay, but they don't look okay.
No.
And you go to see a band that's sold a few million records, and they might sell out the Forum, but they're boring. So, you know, Guns N' Roses was one of the last of those image bands. You know, like
I mean, are there any bands that you're into now that you can say, you know what, this band is?
I like System of a Down.
Okay.
You know, Rage Against the Machine. I like bands with attitude that have something to say and that have, you know, like Rage Against the Machine. They don't dress rock and roll. They're dressed in jeans and whatever. But you know, I went to see them with Muse at the Coliseum a couple years ago, and you know, I like Muse, but Muse didn't amuse me. I was just, I'm watching it, and you know, I'm getting bored already.
Right, right.
Rage comes on, and the whole place is moving.
Right, right.
And you just feel the energy come off the stage. Yet they're not dressed like rock stars, so they still have the energy. They might not dress the part, but they still make that energy come off the stage.
Right.
And other than them, I don't really see that anymore. You can't identify.
No,
you
can't.
Before you saw a Kiss poster, well, that obviously, you know, but, you know, even like a Led Zeppelin poster, you know who the people are in the band. Aerosmith, you know who the people are in the band. Now you just don't know. You might know who the singer is, or maybe the guitar player, but the bass player, what?
Right.
You knew who everyone was because they had a certain image and they did their part in that band, and that's just gone today. And like Slash was telling me, I emailed him a photo I had of Ronnie Lane did an Arms concert in 1983 with Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page, and Eric Clapton, Bill Wyman, just a bunch of superstars. And I found this picture, so I scanned it in and sent it to Slash. And it was a picture of Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, and Eric Clapton. And he says, guitar players don't have that kind of presence anymore.
No, they don't. He's right about that.
He just, you know, the way Jimmy Page was standing and just, it just, and that's what he was saying. They just don't have it.
And believe me, I know it as a retailer. Believe me, we're waiting for Nick Kai. He's a new thing, you know, this kid. He's an amazing guitar player. So some of the audience might not be aware of Canter's history. Can you kind of briefly talk about the Deli? Because it's a big part of Hollywood.
Canter started actually in Jersey City in 1924.
Okay.
My grandparents and a couple of his brothers, they moved here to East Los Angeles actually in 1931, and they opened up a store called Canter Brothers in Boyle Heights. That stayed until about around 1948. My grandparents moved to Fairfax. They called it Canter's Fairfax, and the other one in Boyle Heights still was called Canter Brothers, and it was run by his brothers. In, I'd probably say, the late 60s, they gave it up or retired or sold it, and it was pretty much gone within a year or two. So the only thing left remaining is the Canter's Fairfax, which is basically my dad and my cousin and, you know, my direct family. So, you know, through the 50s and 60s, we were always open 24 hours. So you can imagine supermarkets close at 8 o'clock. And in Hollywood, probably Ben Frank's on Sunset was the only other restaurant open 24 hours. And it was, you know, a third of the size of ours. And it's mainly a diner. We were known for our matzo ball soup and our lox bagel and cream cheese, you know, which is smoked salmon. You know, corned beef pastrami, you know, Jewish deli style foods, and also being a diner, burgers.
Right.
So the food was good, and we were busier than just, you know, madhouse 24 hours a day. And a lot of celebrities, especially in the nighttime, because
they get off the studio.
They had no choice. They're done working at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. They want to go out. There's only like maybe 1 or 2 places open in the whole city. And we were just very famous, especially for rock and roll. I mean, Neil Young actually indirectly worked for us. When he moved here in 1966 from Canada, he drove a hearse to carry his equipment, and he taxied patrons from Canter's Deli to the Sunset Strip and back for $1 a ride. Now, I wasn't aware. We didn't know this back then, but I read it in Rolling Stone
that was smart.
A few years ago. But I knew he came to Canter's because you see these people here and they say, oh yeah, in the 60s we lived here. Frank Zappa would start a table with like 4 or 5 friends, and then he'd go home and as they were eating, more people would come, people would leave, people would come, people would leave. The next day he'd come in, the table was still going, just with different people. It never broke. It was the cool table, the Mamas and the Papas and the Doors and Janis Joplin, just all those, that whole LA scene in the late 60s, you know. Canter's was the cool place because we accepted the hippies. You know, the hippies didn't call other people. No, not here, not here. But Food was good, the prices were right, and we were open 24 hours.
And I got to tell you, the food is still really good, and the prices are way right, because we went in there for breakfast the other day.
Oh.
It was really good. Yeah, it was delicious.
That's
so,
good.
do you still hang out with the band anymore? To go back to Guns N' Roses, do you still see the guys?
No, well, I email with some of them. I see Slash maybe 2 times a year when he's around or in my neighborhood. He'll stop by and have a sandwich or something. Maybe Duff once a year, Steven once or twice a year. Izzy disappeared. I never really saw him after he disappeared. Axl, I would see all the time up until about 2007.
Right. Well, that's kind of the thing. When we grow older, we get into our families and our businesses, and but that is one good thing about the internet and Facebook, I guess. We get to keep up with each other.
Facebook is great. You get to find all your grammar school friends and
yeah, it's fun
see what they
stuff.
look like, see what their family looks like, and their kids look like them, and it's a good way to keep touch with what's going on. You can find anyone.
Yeah, you can. Even you, because I found Mark today after going into Canter's 2 days ago. Well, I'm going to wrap it up. How can we get this into people's hands? Where can they find it? You
can find it in different places. You can get it at recklessroad.com.
Okay.
And we have special covers for each member of the band.
Okay, right on.
You can get it at my eBay store. If you just search Mark Canter on eBay, you'll find it. You can get it on Amazon. You can some bookstores have it, but they might only carry one, like a Barnes and Noble. But bookstores are disappearing. So, really, the best place to get it is online. Google it and see what comes up, and you could find it. It's, there's like 900 photos in there. Like I said, interviews, and
it's a great book.
It's a souvenir, is what it is. It's a souvenir.
It's awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
And thank you for having such a great book and bringing me back to my youth 27 years ago, this album. All right, so we're out of here. Take care.
Okay, thank you.